mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast.
I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
I'm your host, Katie Burke.
I'm your host, Dr. Jerad Henson.
And I'm your host, Matt Harrison.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. The DU Podcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm Dr. Jerad Henson, and I'm going to be your host today. We've got a great episode for you. We have some awesome guests from the Five Oaks Ag and Research Center over in Stuttgart, Arkansas. I've got Director Ryan Askren, Dr. Ryan Askren, hanging out with me here. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us, Jerad.
And I have three of the graduate students in the certificate program that have also joined us today. We have Emily Van Der Veer.
Hello.
We have Tyler Wick.
Hey.
And Brendan Hood.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for coming over. Finishing up Split in Arkansas, since this is all Arkansas audience, and including myself. We're going to be a little biased today, so sorry about that. But we're going to talk a little about what Five Oaks Ag Research Center is, and I'm going to let Ryan talk about that. But first, have you been on the podcast before, Ryan?
I have not. No, sir.
Oh, well, guess what? That means I need a bio on you. Can you introduce yourself to the audience as well? Tell them a little bit about your background and kind of how you ended up at Five Oaks.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Askren. I'm the director of the Five Oaks Ag Research and Education Center. So I come from Iowa originally, so grew up just hunting wood ducks along the Mississippi River. I was pumped to shoot my 2 or 3 wood ducks back in the day, but really developed a passion for waterfowl through photography, through hunting, just the wild places that ducks and geese inhabit. I was able to work some really neat jobs up in Canada and Alaska, and that kind of pushed me into this career path. I went to school at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point for my undergrad, then ended up down at University of Arkansas Monticello for my master's.
That's where I met.
Where we met.
Ryan,
we met. And then ended up going up to the University of Illinois to work with Dr. Mike Ward and Heath Hagee for my doctorate. And once I wrapped that up, this Five Oaks program was kind of coming online. Mr. George Dunklin, Jody Pagan, and Doug Osborne had kind of thought it up and brought it to fruition. And Doug asked me to come back as a postdoc on it, kind of a research associate position. So that's how my wife and I ended up back down in Arkansas. Happy to be there.
And that manifests into the director position that you're now in.
Yep.
Which I think is an awesome fit because of all of the different aspects of that job and what you have going on. You mentioned photography got you into waterfowl. Well, Ryan got me into photography as well. He had me one morning helping him on his master's project, and we're laying in the middle of a field on, I think, Monsanto farm.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know, had 60,000 specks.
Unreal.
Everywhere in this field except for on the bait pile.
Yeah. Right. Let's not chat about that.
But watching that experience and getting to see that, I was like, man, we've got to like capture this. And Ryan's like, yeah, camera. He's ready for it.
Yeah.
And so he got me into it, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, it's been an incredible opportunity. I mean, I would say it's my dream job. I never imagined that I could tie the research side of things, the habitat management, the hunting, and the education all in one. Like, just there really aren't positions like it.
Yeah, no.
Incredibly fortunate to be there.
Hey, well, that's like the position I'm in. I mean, working at DU, like who would have thought that position exists, right? I'm technically a project manager, but I'm over here as a podcast host. I get to do some education, which I really enjoy, which y'all know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, well, it's great to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say, Emily, can you tell us a little bit about your background? We're going to go through everybody here and just get a quick, brief background on everybody, and then we'll talk a little about Five Oaks.
Yeah, so I'm Emily Van Der Veer. I'm from Iowa. I got my undergrad in wildlife biology from a small private university called William Penn University in my hometown of Oskaloosa, Iowa. I worked for a county conservation board all throughout college. And then after I graduated college, I worked as a federal park ranger for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And then I worked for the Iowa DNR. And I was like, well, I have all this background, but I don't really know how to apply it to get to like this upper level of management. And so I was on Instagram actually, and I saw the Five Oaks page, and that's what intrigued me. And I talked to a former student, and she encouraged me to apply, and here I am. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We'll go out here on the outside. Tyler?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm from Indiana. I got my undergrad at a small private institute called Franklin College.
Oh, yeah,
and
Ben.
Oh, yes, with Dr. Ben O'Neill.
Yeah. It's a small world, by the way.
Yeah.
And I spent almost 3.5 years on a urban mallard research internship and post-baccalaureate work with him, studying the urban mallard dynamics and putting on bands, transmitters, and whatnot. So then he's actually, Dr. Ben O'Neill is who got me connected into this program.
Awesome. Brennan?
Yes, sir. I was born and raised in Ruston, Louisiana. That's where I'm from. I eventually went to Louisiana Tech University, got my bachelor's in forestry with a concentration in wildlife habitat management. And I've worked with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. I worked as a student worker out of Monroe for a summer. And then 2 summers ago, I worked up at with Delta Waterfowl up in Minnedosa, doing some nest searching and banded a little bit there too. So
That's
that was
a great experience.
Oh, it was a great time. That's really what got me into waterfowl in general.
Cool.
And then this past summer, I worked down at Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge.
Oh,
yes, sir.
it's a cool place. Very cool. So you got to hang out with Paul?
A little bit. Did some black belly banding.
Yeah, I'm pretty partial to black bellies if y'all don't know. But that's a different episode.
I didn't fill them in.
So, yeah.
We'll chat on the way on.
Well, cool. So we've met everybody, and I want Ryan to talk a little bit more about kind of what the Ag Research Center is, the Five Oaks Ag Research Center is, and then a little bit about kind of how it came to be, what its goals are, and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really, really cool opportunity to not only just do something for land managers and for things like that, but also the education side and something that's missing in kind of the traditional academic setting, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Five Oaks Ag Research and Education Center was founded really out of a duck lodge, and Mr. George Dunklin, former president of Ducks Unlimited, just great conservationist, really had the passion for this property that he's been managing, using as a hunting operation on that property. He's got an incredible passion for the conservation and wants to ensure that that's there for the long term. So he entered in conversations with the university, with Dr. Osborne at UAM about really, how he can benefit wetland waterfowl conservation in that area. And they developed this idea to form a partnership between UAM and Five Oaks. So we're an independent nonprofit,
Right.
Agricultural research and education group partnered with the university system, and enrolled that partnership back in 2021. That formed the graduate certificate program that also funded some research, mostly working on the Five Oaks properties. But really our emphasis is wetland waterfowl conservation in Arkansas, specifically bombland hardwood forest ecosystems. Is one of our passions. And really we're interested in the whole system, not just bombland hardwood forest, not just GTRs, not just moist soil, but how we can work with those systems all together to form these wetland complexes that really support wintering waterfowl there.
Right. Yeah. We found out, and we know that it takes a lot more than one type of habitat to support waterfowl on a landscape setting.
Absolutely.
And this is not a new endeavor as far as research for Five Oaks. Five Oaks has been doing, I know, ag research. They had a test plot right behind.
Yeah,
I think still do, right?
We've moved that down the street. Yes,
okay.
sir. Yeah.
That had that.
Dr. Ronnie Helms.
And then, Jody Pagan has been tinkering with things for a long time in his own research ways.
Jody is former USDA staff employee, did a lot of work early in his career with potential natural vegetation. So just saying they're going to look at the landscape and try to understand how the soils and other characteristics influence what vegetation should have been there. Yeah. So his understanding of everything from the soil up to the botany and then to the wildlife is absolutely incredible. And he's been a manager there at Five Oaks. I think he started in 2015 or 2016.
Yeah.
And really just took our management there to the next level. I should say 2005 or 2006, not
Yeah, I was about to say
15,
it's
16.
been
It's
further
been
back
longer
than
than
that.
that. Yes, sir.
Because he was around when I was finishing up undergrad.
Yeah.
Which has been a while ago.
A while ago.
Well, cool. So that's a little background. So y'all focused on research, the certificate program, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and then education. And so I know y'all do some youth education.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And I did see a tease. Y'all do a good job as far as social media.
Oh, thank you.
Because I saw the like camp in a box type thing
Yep.
get teased recently as well. So I
Yep.
do want to hear a little bit about that. But can you talk a little about the youth education?
Yeah, absolutely.
camps?
So
I'll
Hillary
do-
Horner is my director of youth education. So we've really made an effort to reach out. So really our interest is ensuring that we've got people going into conservation that come from a conservation through use background. So we want people that, are fishermen and women that grew up hunting, that understand the North American model of wildlife management and how that feeds conservation. So really that's our big push kind of across the board, is to make sure we've got these really kind of applied research and education programs to push that.
Lots of focus on that next generation. Looking forward, there's a lot of foresight. That's one of the things I have in my notes. Is it's like seems like everything that y'all have going is really looking to make sure that we have the people in place in the future to take care of the landscape, as well as interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On
right.
the landscape, and people appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's where our youth education program comes in, and it's largely been elementary and middle school focused so far. We're working to expand that into high school, and we're always hoping that we had a class when you were at Christian Brothers come down, so we're always happy to host any group. But really, our education program is focused on elementary school for the most part, to where we're bringing in 4th and 5th grade classes from around the region into Five Oaks. We cover everything from bus fares to the meals and everything. So we try to offer this at no cost to some, traditionally underserved communities around us. The Delta of Arkansas has been struggling for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a relatively impoverished area. So being able to do that for free makes a huge difference on actually being able to get those classes to Five Oaks.
And I think it really helps because a lot of those communities, my family is from some of those areas and those communities. And so I think it's really important to help connect those younger kids and show them that land has value. People are moving away from those areas, right? Yeah. And show them some of the value on that and how to appreciate that rice field that's next to them, or those woods that are full of mosquitoes over there,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I know some of y'all from the Midwest, by the way, rice fields have mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Lots.
Figure that out real quick.
You guys learned. Yeah, so we have those classes out. We go through 4 different stations. They all have a wetland conservation theme to them, a little bit of shooting sports. So we now have an archery station. We have Wacky Waters, which we go sweep for invertebrates, pick up some mosquito larvae, all the toe biters and all the other cool predaceous water bugs that are out there. Really talk through those ecosystems, how the vegetation's important, because based on the vegetation, you have different kind of sweets and diversity of insects in those. We also have a green tree reservoir station, basically, where we go out. We talk about forest ecology. We talk about some of the animals that live there, the food web, as well as we've now included a reservoir. I'm pointing to Tyler because he's the one that taught it this fall.
Awesome.
But talk about water conservation through that. Oh, and then, how could I forget? Our bird identification station. So we go through waterfowl ID is really the emphasis, but we talk about some of the other, forest songbirds that we have in the area.
There's a lot of specific songbirds and just a plethora of other organisms, especially birds, that really do depend upon those habitats, right? And so,
well, and that's and our big, we're ecosystem management focused. With mallards in mind, of course, we are all duck hunters.
But
we
you
really
have to
want
be
those mallards here.
holistic.
But that holistic perspective, one, it benefits the mallards, but also benefits just a huge, incredible suite of species that and have all sorts of values and
us as waterfowl managers and waterfowl experts have to realize that we're going to have to leverage those benefits, right?
Yeah.
Because only so many people care about a green-headed duck.
Right. Yeah. That's hard to believe.
A lot of people care about clean water and pretty songbirds and, nutrient management.
Yep. Nutrient management. fish populations.
Yeah.
Great nursery grounds for
Yep.
many fish species that we have around there. So
So I'm glad that y'all are focused on that. What else we got? So I think one of the other things, we talk about land management. Let's go ahead and jump into the certificate program.
yeah,
We have some great examples here. And this is which class?
this is our fourth class.
Fourth class.
Yes, sir.
So I wasn't sure if it was third or fourth class.
Yeah,
So y'all
we're
put this
in the
out. So
fourth.
tell us a little bit about this program and what kind of the goal is.
Yeah, so this is a graduate graduate certificate. So these guys all already have their undergraduate degree coming out. Really, our focus is to give them the applied side of conservation. So we know undergrad universities do a great job of teaching the ecology, the biology, all that really fine skill stuff, but really miss the ball a lot of times on field experience and actually training people to be ready to go into the workforce and make a difference for conservation.
Yeah, and that's something that I thought was really impressive because especially coming from the academic side myself, it's real easy to teach people what birds look like and the basic principles behind it. I don't have the laboratory space for them to learn how to turn on a tractor.
Yeah.
Or run water management and infrastructure.
Yep.
I don't have that ability, right? And
Right.
y'all do. And that's a cool thing. So you get this waterfowl expertise, you get the biology, but you also get practical land management, which I think is a skill set that obviously is lacking.
Yeah.
Because with farms being much more mechanized, less people working on them, people just don't have that experience like even my generation. I mean, I can say I did grow up driving a tractor and things like that, but I know a lot of newer generations don't.
Yeah, right. And that's there's a big disconnect now between academia and a lot of the land managers. And these guys get thrown into everything that goes on to preparing a property for duck season, to the lodge side of things, to the hospitality side of things, all the way to the tail end of cleaning a bunch of ducks and rigging decoys when they come untied and those kind of things. So
what's the most interesting things y'all have seen so far or done so far that you kind of surprised you or you were happy about? Or
One thing I think that was really cool, I didn't even know existed until I came to Five Oaks, was the drone that they use to spray the fields and use to spread seed and fertilizer. I never knew that existed, and that the fact that that's a tool that we can now use is insane.
Yeah, and that's growing like crazy. I think when I was at the Wings Over the Prairie Festival, I think I saw 2 or 3 different drone companies like that popped up, and that's, I mean, from a landscape management standpoint, if you can aerial applicate on a smaller scale and not have to get a crop duster out,
and
you can also be a lot more accurate.
Yeah.
Right. Pre-program your application.
Yeah, and that I won't get too far into it, but I finally got licensed. We bought one, started using it, one for small plot kind of research things, looking at some fertilization, moist soil. But being able to fly with a survey drone, actually use AI to map out where there's coffee weed and invasive species, and then say, okay, go target the coffee weed where it's above this density. So you're leaving a lot of those more beneficial broadleafs like smartweed.
Right.
Whereas if you have a aerial applicator come in, he's just going to nuke the whole thing. And
It's
you're
broad,
gonna have,
right, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have your grasses left. So being able to really target some of those has been
That's pretty cool.
a fantastic tool. And it's a great research tool as well. being
That's
able to do
awesome.
this
Y'all are getting experience
really
with
applied
that.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What about you,
Study.
Emily?
Yeah. Well, I think just like on more of a broad scale, what I love most about this program is, like he said, the applied side of it, because I did learn so much during my undergrad, but, and I have a decent background of like working for a wildlife unit with the DNR. I spent a lot of time in tractors and stuff, but having it more focused on waterfowl and waterfowl management and how I can take that further into the future, I've learned so much. I mean, there's been a lot of days where it's, like we say, drinking from a fire hose, but it's incredible. I mean, how much you can soak in from being around people who know more than you and who are willing to teach you. It's been fantastic so far. You never know what you're going to be doing the next day, and it keeps you on your toes. But no, it's fun. It's been a blast. Really fortunate to be in here.
When did you remember that you're going to be on the podcast today?
Yesterday.
I'd like to point out I did put it on our calendar. Though,
Yeah.
We got that. It was a short notice, but we got her scheduled. Tyler?
Yeah. So being from Indiana and my region. Especially in my academia at Franklin College, especially, I had very to little to no forestry background, and that is such a crucial part of just wildlife dynamics down here. And just to learning about that and some cool things that we're doing with these red oaks is studying their growth and reproduction in different basal areas and different types of settings, just as research. And I think that's very cool in the now and then later in the future, just to understand how long term that affects the forest, the wetland, and all the wildlife that uses it.
Yeah.
So.
And I imagine y'all probably getting questions this year about red oaks.
Oh, yeah.
Because as someone who walks around the bottoms a lot, there's not much production this year at all.
We've felt that.
So I think that's across the board. That's something that, but I think it's important to know, to understand the ecology, right, of red oaks. Last year it was like walking on marbles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and red oaks
incredible
are every 2 year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still low probably for what it normally would be.
Yeah, it's shocking. We've been searching, so we've got a greenhouse that we're growing seedlings in now as well, and we've been out searching. I finally found some on kind of some higher ridges. Some water oaks was really the main one, which isn't super important in the in the lower areas of the bottomlands traditionally. But those were the only viable acorns I've found anywhere.
As someone,
it's scary.
I deer hunt a lot, and so that's my things. I've been walking a lot looking for acorns and not finding near as many of them as I hoped.
No, sir.
So,
and I'm
but that will be a whole podcast in itself in the future, so we'll come back to that.
Right.
But since you brought it up, I wanted to hit on that. So I think one of the coolest parts is y'all are getting this land management experience. Y'all, when did you start?
We came down here mid-August.
So
early mid-August.
Y'all you've got your feet wet. You've been doing a lot of landscape. What's it look like? What does it look like? What have y'all been doing to get ready for duck season?
Oh boy.
I'm gonna lob a big vague question at you.
I mean,
so what are some of the things y'all have done to as I'm gonna quote Jody and set the table? I know. Yeah. Can you tell I've talked to Jody before? Yeah. So what have y'all been doing?
Yeah. So one of the things we've been doing is in a big part of Five Oaks is managing our most souls, and a lot of that is keeping stuff out and in. So like as Brennan brought up, we've been using our aerial applicator drone a lot, and also our survey drone just to see what's there. Like we want to keep some Egyptian weed that Ryan had planted out earlier in the year for coverage, for thermal and visible coverage, because that's a huge part of the disturbance factor and keeping ducks in the general area, not scaring them off.
Right.
And wanting to keep most coffee weed out, still want to leave some of it for the same thing, that visible structure.
That vague number of what, 30%, something like that,
Yeah,
a random vague number that they suggest. Yeah.
Which I would challenge, but
Well, I'm just saying that's the number that's thrown out.
yeah.
What else have y'all been? So you've been moist soil management, GTR management, obviously trying to do some water management up until this. And I know we got a lot of water, and then we had no water, got a lot of water, and then had no water again.
Yeah. No,
So what does that look like for y'all?
These guys have been less on the water management this year, especially with as little water as we've had. I mean, we are almost entirely surface water driven.
Right. Y'all do have some really cool tailwater.
We do have some great
systems and
water conservation, tailwater
reservoirs,
recovery
so
reservoirs
that allow you.
Those are as dry as I've ever seen them.
Really?
So we've been not struggling. We've been fortunate that we've been able to get some of the water that we need to kind of keep and hold ducks, but we're struggling on that side. But we're probably about 40% flooded up. Still have a lot of moist soil fields to go. Still have some of the millet and what we'd call the hot crops ready to flood for
waiting for a little
later in
season.
December and January.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of natural food out there when water hit it because we hadn't had a frost yet still. So things were still growing in late November.
Still lots of bugs moving around.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool to see. So you've got moist soil, you've been doing GTR management. What else?
A lot of decoy rigging.
Hey, I understand
decoy
that.
rigging, brush and blinds, getting, hunting areas ready and making sure it's up to snuff. And I mean, that's taken a lot of time, but it's fulfilling. I mean, it's satisfying once you're done. You're like, yeah. I mean, it took a while, but we got it, and it looks good.
How many decoys do you think you guys rigged?
Oh man, do you know the number? Or because I know it's.
I haven't a clue. Yeah. It's been a blur.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
But it's been really cool to see this side of the prep. I've never done anything like this, so this was really cool to see the prep you do to each blind and pit, and the decoys you got to do for all that. And it's been really, like you said, fulfilling because you get to go see it all, and then eventually get to hunt it.
You've had our first 9 days, 10 days.
Yep.
Right.
10 days, I think.
How was that rewarding? How did all that come to fruition? Like, did y'all have a pretty good opening split?
It was. It was
hot.
But. It was decent. I know I got to hunt out of one of the blinds that we helped brush up and everything, and that was incredible.
Awesome.
And I enjoyed that. I haven't hunted anything like that in a while.
Well, I guess one of the other questions, not just from the hunting side of it, is it cool to watch the birds respond to your habitat manipulations, right? Y'all have been taking care of the habitat. And as someone who is a waterfowl hunter, but has also done some habitat management on the side, it's almost as addicting as blowing a duck call and decoys, right? You're getting the birds to respond to something you did. So what does that look like? What's some of the cool things that y'all have seen on that side?
So far, one of the fields that we got for moisture is right next to the highway. They call it the highway field. And it's right in the center of it right now. It's got some water on it, and there's ducks and a lot of snow geese that Ryan doesn't want in there, but there's some ducks in there too. And it's really cool getting to see them use something that that you helped put work into.
Right.
That's really fulfilling.
It is.
It's so special.
Yeah,
it's special.
Like earlier in the year, me and Daniel, we took a tractor and rolled a Kelly out there to make some paths, and you can just from on the road, you can just see him cupped up going into those places where you laid it down.
And for some of our listeners that are not ag specialists,
neither am I.
What's a Kelly?
A Kelly is just it's a very low, shallow tillage tool that you put on the back of a tractor, and it doesn't till up much. It really just lays a lot of stuff down and makes it flat.
Real good for stubble management, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really fast. Pretty high speed tool. But it's been
pretty cool. And y'all can do that with moist soil.
Yep. Right. Yeah. And please don't do that with your rice or millet.
No.
They will go to jail.
Ducks Unlimited does not.
You get that's frowned upon.
Yeah. So yeah, in our moist soil, and one of the things Tyler touched on me was Brendan, that coffee weed component. So coffee weed's very tall growing for our listeners that don't know. Coffee weed's a very tall growing legume that rice farmers absolutely hate. It's got a pretty woody stalk, just makes kind of ugly. Provides great vertical structure though. And one of the things we're dealing with now is even in our moist soil. So I used to always say moist soil, these natural, non-persistent emergent vegetation is really important because snow geese can't, exploit that quite as easily as they can cereal grains, rice, millet. It's amazing. Even our moist soil right now has been covered up in snow geese. And they've just been mowing it down, except where we have thick coffee weed.
Really?
And the mallards, you can see them working up into that coffee weed and still feeding around it.
Yeah, I know that's a big thing that I've heard about on the landscape is people, we've talked about changing rice agriculture, but snow geese have really, really hit the availability of rice on landscape when the ducks get here.
Yeah.
The geese did get here late this year, though.
The snow geese did. The specks were about on time for us. But this year, we had a really early harvest, and then we had some rains right after harvest. So we had a lot of green up. So I feel like the geese were hitting that green growth for quite a while. Now that they're starting to feed that off, and these frosts have started to cause that to senesce and die, that they're getting into the grains pretty heavy,
right?
Which can be frustrating to see, but part of God's creation too, I guess.
That's it. They got to eat too.
Yep. Just adaptable, just trying to get by.
That's it. What other stuff do y'all have going on at the research center there? I know y'all got some land management seminars that y'all have put on. So teaching these not just to graduate students, but to industry professionals.
Yeah. So we do a lot of outreach work with local duck club managers, property managers, owners, really trying to, share what Jody and what we have learned at Five Oaks, what we've done that hasn't worked, what we have done that has worked, Really big emphasis on moist soil management, different kind of tools and tricks, like the Kelly's been one of them. That's kind of been a big change over the last 5 years. That's really changed how we manage that. Working with some of these research ideas to understand how we can better monitor and actually measure the benefits of those, trying to share what we learned from that. Some of the other research we're doing, transmitter work, some DNA diet work, sharing the results of those to really, say, hey, this is what's important to a mallard, or what's important to ducks in our region, in our geography.
Well, that's a good segue, because I did want to talk about some of those other research programs.
Yeah.
So what other research do y'all have going on?
Yep. So we started really interested in bombland hardwood forest. So we're still, I shouldn't say we started interested in bombland hardwood forest. We're interested in bombland hardwood forest. We funded a project really doing a forest inventory to understand our forest health across these different elevation gradients, which of course relate back to hydrology. We funded a soils project, so understanding the chemical and physical characteristics of soils in these GTRs, hopefully learn some what could be limiting, how the man-altered hydrology into those GTRs, how that's influenced soil, over several decades now, how that might be influencing those soils, and in turn tree health. We've also done some work. Sitka was kind enough to fund a thinning of one of our bombland hardwood forests to really mimic what they've done on a lot of the WMAs in Arkansas. So we had one of the same foresters that marked a lot of the timber on the WMAs come in. We did patch cuts, variable retention, which basically just means they change up what the basal area is across that area, and then a mix of the two, as well as a control. We then went in and planted seedlings back through all those at different elevations within that GTR. So now we can go back. We've got a bunch of them RTK fixed, random subsample those. We've got really fine GPS locations for each of those. We can go back and repeatedly measure, see how many are surviving, see what their growth rates are like, and then relate that back to the canopy openness, the light that's making it down to those seedlings, as well as the hydrology and the water depth. Messing a little bit with the sprayer drone. Fertilization of moist soils, one of those things that some people are doing. I wouldn't say it's super common, but like I know Fish and Wildlife Service used to do some. They've actually stopped because they weren't sure they were seeing a seed yield response to that. So now we've been going back and experimentally fertilizing some small plots in our moist soil fields.
And with the drone stuff, I know that I've talked to you and seen some stuff y'all been doing in the past too with the survey drone you were talking about. You also can take from, obviously LiDAR's fantastic, but from what I understand, you're able to get an idea of some topography as well, just from the camera itself. I don't remember what that's actually called. Yeah, it's a oblique ortho mosaic, but it does some 3-dimensional modeling of the canopy. And so you can do different like canopy levels as well. And that's a really cool thing. I've seen some of your presentations that you've been doing. I think that's a really cool skill set to get a much better idea of how that variation in that forest health, can dictate how birds respond to it, and just in general how the ecosystem is acting, with the substory, without those types of things. Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty neat. Yeah, and kind of my pet project is we're doing, as with a lot of groups, we're doing some mallard transmitter research. So we've been deploying about 45 transmitters pre-duck season every year, that the mallard show up in time that we can catch them and have bait out of the water well before duck season. But really using that to hone in on kind of the fine scale habitat selection, what those forests look like that mallards are selecting for, and how we can alter our forest management to really reflect what those and where y'all are putting those out. That's really cool. One of the cool things about the location for Five Oaks is you have an incredible mosaic of private duck clubs, public land, ag land, and you can look at use across all those different things within that 3-4 mile radius of kind of what I guess people would call a duck home range kind of idea, right? Yeah. So you're not looking at big movements, you're looking at local daily movements. And I think that's a pretty cool look into that big model. It is, I mean, the insights it's given us already, scrub habitat is one of the things that's coming out as really the most important land covers. So things like bunbush, reservoirs, willow sloughs, those kind of things really, I mean, it's emphasizing how important habitat that minimizes disturbance on a duck is. It's the lacking habitat too in that landscape. If it's all mostly very limited. Very limited.
yeah, it's been really neat to see how those transmitters are moving around. We actually, on the way up, I checked the transmitters, and we've got one that's hopped over to Tennessee.
Oh.
Yeah, it's over on Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge.
Really?
So I don't know why he left Five Oaks and decided to come over here, but
Dangerous move.
yeah.
Their season end now?
Yeah.
Technically? Or when's Tennessee come back in? They went out for a little bit. I think they come back in
Okay.
today.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, at least he moved during the split too.
He wasn't getting shot at to move at that point.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is.
So y'all got some partnership projects as well. Like you mentioned, you work with some of the people at UAM as well. I know you've had the CIG. Which project was that?
Yep. So that's looking at conservation and innovation grant with USDA. So really looking at the soil benefits of moist soil management. So working in kind of our units and how we manage already, using some of the history of how we've managed that to now understand the soil health.
Right.
To really
That's
go to
a hot
USDA.
topic.
It is. And really to get programs implemented to help fund farmers to do some of these duck-friendly practices, but also understand how that's improving the soil,
to them as well, right?
and incentivize those, provide payments to them. So that's a conservation innovation grant. We just had a field day, I guess, just a couple months ago. But had a bunch of local landowners, people that hopefully will be practicing some of these moist soil management practices and kind of subpar fields, areas that they aren't making a lot of money on.
To hopefully repair the soil health in some of those areas
Absolutely.
that have just been plowed for
while
years.
providing some habitat.
And I know y'all had another partner project that was an IRA, like a climate smart grant, looking at it's forest biomass, right? Carbon accumulation a little bit.
It's very multifaceted, and we're just partners on that. So that's Dr. Osborne, Dr. Nantian, Dr. Pelkey's on it, and there were a few other folks that I should remember all their names from.
Well, it's just really cool to see that trying to get at all those different benefits, right?
Yeah.
Of the habitat, right? Not just sell duck benefits.
Yeah, right. And this one, it's multifaceted, and it's working to understand, carbon sequestration, some of those really climate change driven areas of research, but also looking at how it can affect landowners and how these incentive programs can benefit landowners, as well as the duck side. So we've got some transmitters working on that to understand how ducks are using these areas, which is something like 700,000 acres that we've restored in Arkansas, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, that's one of the only wetland, gains that we're getting back.
Yeah, Arkansas and Louisiana are the two that are putting we like WRE.
Yeah, WRE is
areas,
WRE is fantastic for farmers and for ducks. So
exactly. I think I've got a much better idea of what y'all are doing. Now I'm going to tease you for a migration update. What are y'all seeing on the landscape? I know y'all just drove over this morning. It was kind of a nasty weather, so you didn't get a great view, but
we saw a couple fields of ducks, lots of snow geese.
I feel like I saw more than I did last week, but I could be wrong.
There were some rumors, I think, the last Sunday of the season, I guess Sunday after Thanksgiving with that front that brought some birds in then.
Yeah. So, we got the Halloween mallards, Mr. Jody calls them.
Right.
So we had quite a few mallards show up right around Halloween. Some of the spots that we always have early water is where they piled up first. Lots of pintail and gadwall. Then really the 2 or 3 days right before season, we saw a big uptick in mallard numbers. I'll preface that by saying we're really lucky that we've had some good surface water to flood up with, so we're able to have water showing for those earliest arriving ducks when a lot of people around us didn't.
And some of your neighbors did too.
Yeah. We've got some fantastic neighbors that do great management, and really, we all work together to keep ducks in that area. So we saw a lot of mallards before season. Then about right around Thanksgiving, seemed like another great push with those cold temperatures. And honestly, I think a lot of what people perceive as low duck numbers is just ducks altering their behavior to not move around and not be visible. They're good at going places that they're not disturbed, not getting shot at. So we've had a lot of ducks. They haven't been super visible. They haven't been moving a ton. But like, for instance, you could go out at night and just watch them pouring onto our property from the neighbors, when you wouldn't think there were that many ducks out there. So some of that's altered behavior, but I was really impressed with the number of mallards we had around. Really, our rice fields struggled the most. We really didn't see as many greenwing up around there, which is usually kind of one of our staples of hunting up there. Towards the end, though, I was starting to see bigger green wing numbers, couple thousand around a few of those farms. So hopefully the second part of the season they'll be around.
Well, that's good news. Hopefully we'll get some water on the landscape for those folks who didn't catch it early.
Yeah.
I know we just got a little rain in that region that kind of hit the mid-south, and that's where most of this area is we're kind of talking about. Hopefully that rain will help out. Is there any closing thoughts that you want to say about the research center or anything y'all want to say before we start to wrap this thing up?
No, I mean, we're here to, provide research that's making a difference for waterfowl and wetland conservation, working to educate people. Happy to partner with folks whenever there's an interest there. We're getting ready to advertise for our next year's graduate certificate class. So if there's any undergraduates out there who are interested in getting a degree in waterfowl and wetland management, coming to work with us, please reach out to me.
How many students do y'all take?
So between 3 and 5.
Between 3 and 5.
This is the smallest class we've had. We had 5 last year, but really, I mean,
and where do people go from here?
Yeah,
So that's kind of another question.
Yeah, we've had, I've got to count it up now. We've had at least 3 go to Ducks Unlimited, a couple in Fish and Wildlife Service. Really not state agencies yet. Several private landowners, so managing private properties. Right. And then a few on for their master's or even doctorate coming out of this program. So we of course, we're focused on the management side. I come from movement, ecology, research background. Right. Doug comes from a research background. So they get roped into doing a lot of what I think is really fun research stuff. I'm not sure they'll agree with me at the end of February when they've been burning it at both ends, catching ducks for a month. But yeah,
February gets real busy for y'all.
It does.
But it's really cool, the research coming out of it. And I think this program is really unique, and it's something that the space needed. Y'all got anything y'all want to say?
No, it's a special opportunity. And if someone, like you said, getting ready to advertise for the next class, if it's something you think you'd be interested in, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, very, very rarely, maybe once in a lifetime, will you be able to dedicate practically a full year to ducks and wetland ecology, and that is a very rare opportunity, and you wouldn't regret it. If you love ducks and avid duck hunter, and you just appreciate the wildlife and God's beautiful creation, man, it's leaves you speechless. Leaves me speechless every day.
Always is. This is like a waterfowler's dream come true here. This opportunity that we got to have here, and it's definitely something I've always wanted to do is waterfowl habitat stuff, because it's just an amazing opportunity to get to be there in person doing the work by hand is the best thing you can do.
I'm jealous a little bit. Not gonna lie. I definitely need to find a way to come down more often.
Yeah, you do.
You're definitely worse places to be.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to close it out here. I really want to thank Ryan, Emily, Tyler, and Brendan for joining me today, our special guests from Five Oaks Ag Research Center. Got to thank our awesome producer, Chris Isaacs, back here, the man behind the computer, and our listeners for joining in. We can't do this without y'all. So thanks for joining in. We're so glad that y'all hopped on this, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the DU Podcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit ducks.org/DU Podcast. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks.